Most people think heartbreak is just something that happens in relationships. Someone leaves, you feel pain, eventually time passes, and you move on. But what if heartbreak isn't just something that happens to you? What if it's actually a pattern your mind repeats across your entire life, just in different forms? Because if you pay attention, heartbreak doesn't only show up in your relationships. It shows up when people die, when friendships shift, when people grow apart, when you outgrow versions of yourself. Even life doesn't match what you expected anymore. Same emotional experience, different situations. And once you start seeing it like that, something changes. It stops feeling random. It starts feeling structured. So in this video, I want to break down where heartbreak actually comes from, why it keeps repeating in cycles, and how you start to reduce its emotional control over you without shutting emotions off completely. Heartbreak doesn't come from one specific event. It comes from something deeper, attachment being disrupted. But attachment isn't just about people. It's not only, I got attached to this person, it goes way deeper than that. You get attached to versions of reality. You get attached to how life feels when someone is around. You get attached to routines, emotional patterns, identities, and versions of yourself that existed in a certain time. So when something changes, it's not just the person or the situation you lose. It's the entire internal world built around it. For example, you don't just lose a relationship. You lose the version of life where that person existed in your daily emotional world. You don't just lose a friend. You lose the identity you had when that friendship defined your environment. You don't just lose someone to death. You lose the entire internal structure your mind built around your presence. So heartbreak isn't really about losing someone. It's about losing a familiar version of reality your mind was anchored to. So now, here's where it gets deeper. The mind doesn't just store people as memories. It turns them into meaning systems. So when you connect with someone, your mind starts building expectations of who they are, emotional safety tied to their presence, assumptions about how the future will look with them, identity associations. This is who I am. This person is my life. And once that structure is built, your mind treats it like a stable reality. So when it breaks, it doesn't just feel like something ended. It feels like the collapse of an internal world you were living inside. Every heartbreak follows a very consistent pattern. First, there is connection. Something or someone enters your life and creates emotional meaning. Then comes attachment. Your mind starts linking comfort, identity, and familiarity to that connection. Then comes projection. You start building expectations, not always consciously, but your mind begins forming a version of the future where this stays stable. And then something changes. The connection weakens or disappears. But your mind doesn't process it immediately. Instead, it resists. So what happens next is repetition. Your brain starts replaying moments, conversations, memories, emotional highs, what-if scenarios, versions of the past that feel unresolved. And emotionally, it feels like experience is still active, even though logically, it already ended. That's why heartbreak doesn't just feel like a single event. It feels like something that keeps looping. One of the strangest parts of heartbreak is how random it feels. You can be completely fine, and then one memory hits and your entire emotional state shifts. A song plays, a place reminds you, a smell triggers something, a thought appears, and suddenly you're not in the present anymore. You're back in the emotional version of the past. But here's what most people don't question. You're not reacting to the actual person anymore. You're reacting to the internal reconstruction of that experience. Because memory is not reality. It's a replay your mind builds using fragments of emotion, meaning, and imagination. So what you're feeling isn't the present situation. It's the mind reopening an old emotional file. Heartbreak feels stronger than it should because there's a mismatch happening internally. Your external life moves forward, but your internal world doesn't always update at the same speed. So even after someone is gone, your mind still behaves like they exist in your reality, still emotionally accessible, still part of your internal environment. So you end up in this strange in-between state. One part of you knows it's over. Another part of you is still emotionally living inside it. And that gap is where most emotional pain lives, not in the loss itself, but in the delay between reality and internal acceptance. This is why heartbreak doesn't stay in one category of life. It repeats in different forms because the system behind it is always the same. It's not about the relationship. It's about the way your mind processes attachment and loss. So you see it in childhood attachments, teenage relationships, adult relationships, friendships, career shifts, identity changes, even personal growth moments where old versions of you disappear. Different situations, same structure. Connection, attachment, expectation, disruption, replay. And until you actually recognize that structure, your mind keeps applying it automatically to new experiences. Diminishing heartbreak doesn't mean you stop caring, and it doesn't mean you shut off emotion or become disconnected from people. It means you start seeing the process while it's happening, instead of fully entering the memory. You recognize it as a memory. Instead of letting the replay take over, you observe it from a distance long enough to stay grounded in the present. Because most of heartbreak is not happening right now. It's happening in a mental replay loops of the past. And once you can see that clearly, something shifts. The emotion doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority over your behavior. Heartbreak is something that will always exist in life because attachment will always exist. But suffering from heartbreak is not random. It follows a pattern, and anything that follows a pattern can be understood. And anything that is understood starts to lose control over you. So the goal isn't to avoid heartbreak. The goal is to see it clearly enough that it stops controlling how you experience life. If this resonated, follow for more content on patterns in human behavior, emotional cycles, and the hidden systems people repeat without realizing it. And if you want, comment truth, and I'll break down the exact patterns you keep repeating in relationships, money, decisions, without even noticing it.